Through the concrete cracks worn weary by work boots and high heels, through the concrete cracks showered in tears of sorrow, tears of joy, through the concrete cracks rumbled by reverberations of 100 years, a flower on the hill takes its first breath, and a grand hope springs. Welcome to the Spring Street podcast at the intersection of creation and destruction in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. And now, a word from the sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by Starship Kairos, a podcast studio available for bookings in downtown Los Angeles. Starship Kairos is where my guests and I make this show happen. Soundproofed, cozy, and equipped with professional audio gear, Starship Kairos is an ideal location for any type of podcast. Starship Kairos offers a full suite of services including content consultation, mixing and mastering, and custom jingle writing. For rates and booking, check them out on Instagram at Starship Kairos or click on the link in the description. And now, let's dive in. Okay, Carlos, welcome to the Spring Street podcast, man.
Thank you for having me.
This is the first international podcast. So we are here in Montreal, and I'm super, super excited to be doing this tattoo podcast with you, my man. So thank you so much. It's an honor.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for asking me to participate in this, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, this is the moment of truth. This is where we find out what this podcast is going to feel like. But not too bad. So, right. Well, I want to go back to the beginning. How did you get started tattooing?
How did I get started? I started in 2019. I had originally studied here at a university called Concordia. I studied finance, and I worked after in a company in the finance department for Pfizer for almost 3 years, and started realizing that corporate lifestyle was just really not fit for me. Didn't want to spend the next 30 to 40 years of my life doing that. So really reflected on what I wanted to do. I've been drawing since I'm a kid. Tattooing had started to spark and speak to me when I was in university. Thanks to social media, it started becoming more apparent or visible to me. And so I just wanted to learn how to do that art. Left my job in 2019, and I started looking for an apprenticeship all around Montreal. It took months before I actually found somebody or a studio to actually have me in. So in the meantime, I started tattooing at the house. I bought a machine, bought some synthetic skin, started practicing on that. And then a friend of a friend reached out, said he wanted to be my first guinea pig. And honestly, thank you so much. And so he came over, did the tattoo. Wasn't the best thing in the world, but he was really happy with it. He came again. Then his girlfriend, his sister's friends started coming. And Instagram started helping me bit by bit. And a month after, I found a studio here called Velco, and I reached out. They got back to me. I met with them. We vibed, and they started letting me go to the studio just to watch and ask any questions. So I did that for a month, and at the end of that month, they told me that I could start bringing my clients to the studio after that. And so the apprenticeship was amazing. I had a great experience. They were there for me for any question that I might have. So I'm very fortunate with that, because I've heard other people say that their apprenticeship experience wasn't that great. But honestly, it felt like a little artistic university. It wasn't just about tattooing. It kind of encompassed a bit of both art, tattooing, merging those things together, a little bit of the business aspect in terms of marketing yourself on Instagram. So that helped a lot. And before tattooing, I knew zero about tattooing. I hadn't been to a tattoo studio before. I hadn't been tattooed before. So I was coming fresh into this. It was like putting on in a new game into a console and learning the rules from start. So it was a complete starting from zero, and Velour was a great university and school to learn. So big thanks.
Wow, shout out to them. So when you did your first tattoo, you had never been tattooed before?
Nope, I hadn't.
Wow. Have you been tattooed since?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is really fascinating. I think that might be somewhat exceptional. I think most of the tattoo artists that I've met or come across, they had been tattooed, well before they ever started tattooing, and that was kind of part of the process. So that's really interesting. That apprenticeship that you did at Velour, was it just for that 1 month, or how long did that apprenticeship last?
I was there for 4 years. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah. After 4 years, I started, last year pretty much, I started exploring it just didn't work out with them. So I decided to go to another studio. I was doing guesting. So I went to do a month in one studio. I did another 2 months at another studio just to try out, see how things go, see if it was like if I would connect, if they would connect with me and me with them. Didn't quite feel at home at the studios. Everybody was super nice, but there was something missing for me. So that's when I started having the idea of just doing something solo for a while and just have a little private thing for me. But keeping in mind that I see the value of working with others. There are sparks of creativity when you gather along with other artists. So I really appreciate doing that, working with others. So what I have in mind is just to do guest spots here and there within Montreal and in other cities as well. But for now, I think I'm just going to try out 1 year, just doing this by myself here and doing guest spots from time to time, just to get to stay in touch with other artists, just to see how other studios work, and explore and meet.
When you were doing your apprenticeship, did you have to try out other types of styles, like American traditional or, script work, fine line? You have a very specific style, which is actually the reason why I was drawn to you and wanted to do a podcast with you. But your style is also very different from, other mainstream tattoo styles. So during that apprenticeship, were you having to learn other tattooing styles?
No. So what I basically did was when I first started, I was only doing line work. I kind of set that boundary for myself. I just wanted to get in touch with or accustomed to the skin, the needle, the machine, how like the basic of how things work. So I just did line work for a good year. And then after that, I started exploring a bit with shading. And one of the techniques that I had seen was this, pretty much what I do, dot work. And I tried it. It really spoke to me. The outcome, that grainy texture that it gives. And so for me, that was like a pivoting moment of, oh, okay, this is kind of what I want to do. How though do I want to draw it? And just to apply that grainy texture into the designs. So 5 years ago, before I started tattooing, I didn't draw like this at all. This style started coming from that world of tattooing and getting inspired by other artists, by graphic design, by the person that mentored me. So it's just seeing how we can apply simple shapes, big contrast, smooth shading. I really enjoy that, and giving it that grainy texture that the dot work effect gives is kind of what I wanted to encompass and or bundle up within this style.
A lot of tattoo artists that I've talked with, they talk a lot about pulling a straight line, and that kind of seems to be like this golden standard of judging an artist based on how well they can pull a straight line. What does it take to pull a straight line?
I don't think that should be the criteria of being a great artist. It really depends on the style that you do. Like you can have great lines, and maybe your style is line work. But if you want to do packing and like color work, that doesn't necessarily translate that if you do a straight line, you can do other things. So it really depends on what type of work you're doing. To do a straight line is a lot in your stability, just having a calm breath and being stable with both hands, like stretching the skin, going in the depth that you need to go, and kind of having that easy flow and just move with the skin, with the body. It takes practice, and it takes starting to be comfortable with that, because someone that's first starting out, for sure, one, you might not even know how deep to go into the skin, or you just don't know certain angle to have with the machine when you want to go in there.
What surprised you when you first started tattooing?
What surprised me?
Or what was maybe something unexpected, something that you learned the first time you picked up a machine and started actually putting ink into fake skin or ink into skin?
What I've learned through tattooing that I've really enjoyed that I didn't think I would was speaking to other people. I think that's the aspect of tattooing that I enjoy the most. I'm more on the introvert side, and as a kid, I was very shy, didn't talk, and now I talk every day with people that come, and that was the thing that kind of like stood out for me. Doing the artwork is fun. I really enjoy it, and I get to draw every day, and so I feel like a kid, and I get to practice that creative muscle within me. But having those little glimpses of realities of everybody that comes has been the thing that has, I guess, surprised me the most in terms of, I didn't expect this. I didn't expect this was going to be the thing that I would enjoy the most, or that I would even get from tattooing. So it has become like a portal to see other realities, and that's the thing I appreciate the most out of tattooing.
There's definitely an intimacy that can come through a tattoo session. I mean, one person is allowing another person to inflict a certain level of pain to create this shared experience and this permanent piece of art. It's very fascinating. Something that I like to ask tattoo artists is, how do you feel about people who maybe the tattooing experience brings up certain memories or certain feelings that may be pretty intense, and the tattoo artist can almost take on this kind of therapeutic role. It's been interesting talking to some tattoo artists about this, because some of them feel like if they're able to serve somebody and be a listener, or be there to, let that person talk about something like a really intense experience, then that's a good thing. And other tattoo artists think, you know what, people should save that for an actual therapist and not dump their emotional traumas and experience on me. Have you ever had those experiences where somebody just through that process of getting tattooed, they start really, really sharing some deep, intense stuff?
I have, yes. And from my perspective, I appreciate the trust that they provide with sharing that. Because sometimes it's been bundled up in there for that person and they haven't even been able to word it out to anybody. One, because they might fear of being judged. And for some reason, they felt a certain level of comfort to share it with me. So I appreciate that they feel that. I enjoy listening to people. I might not be able to give the best advice, but I don't think that's what they're asking for. They just want to speak their experience and their hardships, and sometimes it's just beautiful things as well. So I really enjoy that. And I think that's part of the connection, because that's part of the art. That's part of the meaning of the tattoo. And that's part of what's that story behind everything. And when you look back at the tattoo, you might remember, for me, a tattoo is kind of like a snapshot of that moment in life for you. Whether the tattoo meant something or you just thought the design was cool. Years afterward, when you look at it, you might think of that moment of time throughout your life that you were having, or even just the session when you entered the studio, or the conversation you had with the artist, or something throughout the day that happened to you. It's kind of just like a little snippet of that moment of life for you. So being able to share that little glimpse of life with that person and them sharing with me, I'm happy to do that.
Are there any tattoos that you've done in the past that really stick out to you? Any experiences that you've had with clients?
I would say one of the best or most, for me, like beautiful moments that I had with a tattoo experience was one of the most simple tattoos I've ever done. It was just a word, and it's a word in Greek. I forgot the exact word, but it meant for them so beautiful that it's painful. I think that's kind of like the meaning. And it was something I tattooed it to the grandfather of somebody that I've tattooed multiple times that became a friend. And her grandfather wanted to get a tattoo. I think at the time he was 79.
Wow.
He had never been tattooed before, and his granddaughter is very special to him. So he wanted to meet this artist that she's been talking about multiple times. And I think jokingly he said, all right, let's get a tattoo together, or a matching tattoo. And she's like, all right, perfect. And they booked something, or she booked something. She told him that she booked. And then the grandmother was like, hey, what about me? So her grandmother came as well.
Wow.
I tattooed the grandfather, the grandmother, and my friend.
Wow.
And it was just a very beautiful moment for me to have that trust from this person that tattoo world is not his world, but for his granddaughter and for his family, he wanted to get something special, and it was just nice. And at the end, when I'm doing the little photo shoot, he's hugging his wife. They have the tattoos showing, and I'm doing like little pictures and a little video. And when I'm doing the video, he gives his wife a little kiss, and I just thought it was like super cute.
Wow.
So I enjoyed that.
That's incredible. You don't hear those stories a lot.
And it's simple. It's a simple little thing.
What was it challenging tattooing skin that's 79 years old?
It's different. It's definitely different. The skin feels more fragile, thinner, And so I was very mindful, very attentive. I wouldn't say it was harder, but I was just being extra cautious just in case. Didn't want to go in too deep and damage the skin. And again, the tattoo was very small and simple, so it didn't take a long time.
Have there been any tattoos that have been particularly challenging for you? Pieces that feel like they've really stretched your ability and your skill?
So there's different things. Sometimes it's the designs that can be difficult, and I take on that challenge. And when it comes to making the design, sometimes it's a puzzle to actually be able to put things together, the concepts that the person might have. And so there have been times that I passed a good, like, too many hours on something to be able to get something done. And then sometimes there's a little bit back and forth. And it's extremely rewarding when it finally comes, but it's so energy draining to do those. And then there's others that are more of the actual tattooing, the body part. And so one that like kind of sticks out to me was something that it was a laurel wreath that was just going from the back all the way to the front. And it was the first time that I was tattooing that area. So it was just like a nice little challenge for me to tattoo all around. And it was just a bigger piece for me at that time to do.
Wow.
And that took, like, that was the longest session I had at that time, and it was 5 hours of tattooing. I was drained at the end. The guy was super happy. He even took a little nap while I tattooed him.
Oh, wow. Yeah, how often do people end up falling asleep while you tattoo them?
Since I usually lay people down, not that often, but some people do pass out a little bit here and there.
Yeah, honestly, if we weren't doing this podcast, I'd probably pass out. This is very comfortable.
Close your eyes, look at the view.
It's kind of surprising that that's even possible, but there's, I had a rose done on the inside of my left arm, and I definitely almost passed out.
Yeah.
I just fell asleep laying down getting tattooed. There's like a certain rhythm that you find yourself in where the pain just kind of becomes the background and you can still be really calm. Have you found pain management to be tricky at all with certain clients? Are there ever moments where a client just really can't take the pain and you have to help them with that somehow?
I've been very fortunate, and I think it's just the style that I do is more, it's not that impacting on the skin. I don't know. How do you feel right now? Like while I'm tattooing you? In terms of pain?
It's interesting. It's not that bad. I think that this placement is maybe like only a tiny bit more painful than maybe a couple other placements on this arm.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's, I have yet to do a podcast where it's so crazy that I can't even talk.
It's like the spicy, isn't there a podcast or a show where they eat spicy food and they're having conversations?
Yeah, I'm sure if I ever do my fingers or my hands or like my elbow or the pit,
your foot.
Yeah, I'm sure that will really push me to my limit, which I want to do that at some point just to see what happens. But on that note, we talked earlier about certain placements that you won't do.
Yeah.
So what are those placements? What are the areas that you won't tattoo and why?
So for now, at this moment, it would be the face, the hands, elbows, knees, and the feet. Especially because, well, for me, something that I really want is for the tattoo to age well. Mm-hmm. And those places aren't the best for that. So right now, my mindset is like, that's my boundary. Maybe in a few years, I'll be like, fuck it. I'm just going to explore. Yeah. Let's do it. But I've done in the hands and the feet. I think I did maybe one in the knee. It's very hard as well. like the skin is rough in the knee and the elbow, so it's not the funnest to tattoo. It would be really, it would have to be something that like a project that I'm like, oh my god, yeah, I gotta, why not? Let's just do it. I also don't get that many requests for it, which is, I feel like people kind of see on your portfolio what you're doing and they ask for certain things. But most are torso area and like bicep, forearms, the and on the legs.
Now, in terms of portfolio, social media, one thing I noticed being here in Montreal is there's a lot of tattoo shops. It seems like there's a lot of tattoo artists in this city. What role does social media play in getting clients? And do you ever feel like there are too many tattoo artists and that it's becoming an oversaturated market?
So I don't feel there's a lot of tattoo artists in Montreal. I haven't felt that there are too many, just because there's just so many styles, and I love that, just to see what other people get to do or are doing and how they speak to the world. And so, and everybody has just a different taste of what they want to get as a tattoo or art in their body. So it just provides more options to people. When you have kind of like a unique style and it speaks to people, they will go for that style. The role of social media has been, for me and for this line, incredibly helpful. I would say is pretty much how I would get most of my clients, like 98%.
Wow.
I mean, there's people that see one of my tattoos from their friend or just someone in the streets. The other day I tattooed somebody that had seen one of my tattoos at a music festival, and they asked the person, and then
way.
But then they reach out through Instagram.
Wow.
Like they look me at my work up on Instagram, and then they reach out through there. So social media for me is my marketing campaign, and so it plays a big part of this whole job.
So do you run ads for your Instagram account?
I haven't in a while, but I did when I started. I didn't put that much time into it, and I didn't invest that much into it. I was just exploring for a bit, and I was doing it probably like, I think I had done it 2 or 3 times per month. And then people started sharing my work. Other accounts started sharing my work, accounts that share tattoos. And so that kind of started helping my visibility. And so I kind of just stopped running Instagram ads.
I saw on your Instagram that you got to be part of a playing card, like tattoo playing card flash pack. Tell me about that experience and how that came about.
That was super fun. So where I used to work at Velour, one of the owners, who's David Cote or David Peyote, he had been invited to participate in Flash Friends the year before. And so it's by Crocodile Jackson. And I thought the concept was amazing. I was like, wow, this made me think of as a kid playing Pokemon.
Yep.
I got to collect them all. Like, wow, I loved it. So I reached out to him saying, if you are doing another one, I'd be happy to participate. And when he actually did another one, he reached out saying if I was still interested. I'm like, of course. So I provided, he asked for 3 designs. I provided the designs. And a couple of months later, the whole packaging came out. He gave me a box of all the cards, and I felt like a kid.
So
I was
cool.
like, oh my God, this was so satisfying.
So cool. Yeah. How many artists were part of that? Do you know?
I forgot, but I think there was more than 100.
Wow.
I feel like that was it. But for me, it it was so nice to be able to participate in that because there's artists from all around the world. And just to discover the art and artists that are in there, that was really fun for me.
I think it's a brilliant idea. As soon as I saw it, it just reminded me of like Magic the Gathering and opening up a booster pack of cards, just childhood nostalgia. And it's so cool to bring all these different artists together in that way. And I think that guy is in Los Angeles. I think he's based in LA.
Yeah.
So I think when I go back, I got to try to track down that shop and see if I can get some of those cards.
Definitely.
Because it's such a brilliant idea.
Anybody that likes like collecting or that's just into tattooing, this is great. Like honestly, it just brings back that child inside of you. So I would go for it.
On another note, I was curious about the name Velco.
Yeah.
There's a part of it that kind of is reminiscent of velour, but where does that name come from? What does it mean to you?
So my last name is Velasquez, and I come from Colombia. So I kind of just put those two together, Velco.
Okay.
And I'd make a little origin. It coincided that I was working at Velour, and so people kind of like sometimes, barely. But it's mostly from my last name plus the country where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Have you gotten to tattoo in Colombia at all?
I haven't, not yet. No, I have not brought. I go to Colombia every year, but I haven't brought my machine with me when I go. When I'm going to Colombia, it's to visit my parents and family. So I'm just kind of more in the mood set of relax.
Yeah. Now, coming from the financial industry and becoming a tattoo artist, I'm sure that for maybe your parents, this is a pretty big transition. What was that experience like? Was it awkward? Was it were you nervous about telling your family, "Hey, I'm actually going to be a tattoo artist"?
I waited until the last day at Pfizer, where I worked at, to call them up because my parents don't live here; they live in Colombia.
Yeah.
To call them up and to let them know, and I called my mom first. My parents are divorced. I called my mom first, and she's super chill. I told her, "Hey, Mom, today's my last day at Pfizer. I decided that I didn't want to continue doing this. Appreciate the opportunity, but I kind of want to do something that speaks more to me. I'm going to try learning how to tattoo." She's like, super proud of you. Go for it. If that's what makes you happy, that makes me happy. I'm like, thank you. Cool. Nice.
Wow.
Amazing. Thank you, Mom. I called my dad. My dad is like the complete opposite of my mom.
Uh-oh.
So I was already kind of expecting that. And I told him the same thing. And then he starts getting super stressed. One, financial wise, like how are you going to sustain yourself? Two, his vision or his perspective of tattoo and that industry was everything that's bad, criminals, like drugs and people that are not good for society. He was just like nervous. So he's like, oh, my son's going to be surrounded by these people. So he started getting super stressed. And I just told him, Dad, I'm pretty stressed right now. And if you're just going to be like that, I'm just going to hang up, man. I don't want this extra stress. So right there, he kind of calmed down and it was super chill. We continued the conversation. A couple months after I started tattooing, I would send my parents like pics. We have a little family group chat. So I would send my parents pics of what I was doing. My dad was like, he's super supportive now. And like a few months after he told me something that really touched me, he's like, I'm very proud of you for having switched, for having left something that didn't really speak to you. He comes from a background. He was born in 1952 in a little town in Colombia. He didn't have shoes for the longest time. Like he remembers walking barefoot for a long time. He comes from a family of 11. I think there were more, but there was, I think 13. One died at birth, a few years after she was born, and 2 those miscarriages. And so coming from a big family, like his mentality was you find one job and you stick with it and like just retire with that company. You grow with the company. That's kind of like what I would hear from him growing up. Although I didn't grow up with him, I had more like a virtual relationship with him because we left Colombia when I was 6 and my dad stayed in Colombia. I left with my mom. So it was just always like something that he would kind of say. And for him, it was just hard that I was leaving that. But then he didn't enjoy what he did for a living. It was just a means of getting income. So he was really proud of me for having done that, for not sticking with something that didn't really speak to me just because of the money. And now I was doing something that I was really happy with and that he would love to get a tattoo from me.
Wow.
Which I still haven't done, but I will eventually bring my stuff to Colombia.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So
I'm always fascinated by stories of immigrants and people who have moved across the world or across borders. Where feels like home to you?
where it feels like home. Montreal feels like home. I really enjoy the lifestyle that I get to have here. I do find winters a bit long. But apart that, like sometimes I just get away for a bit. I have a lot of family in the States and in Colombia. So I visit them from time to time throughout the winter. But I just really enjoy the lifestyle that I get to have here. And being with family feels at home. So whenever I go visit my sister in Georgia, my mom was in Colombia, but now moved to Georgia as well. So, and then visiting my dad, like those are all places that I get to call home. And so I appreciate that I got to move around and live in different places because it kind of allowed me to experience different lifestyles and to see, like such a change of a South American type of living versus a North American, and then moving back and forth between them and getting that experience here of Montreal, which is a bit of European, I guess. I don't know. I do feel it, but very North American at the same time. I just feel like it's a nice little hub of a lot of immigrants are here. And you get flavors from all over the world, especially with food, which I love. So, yeah.
What do you remember of Georgia? The first place you ended up when you came from Colombia?
I remember it being a lot of mountains. We lived in it's a city, but for me it was just middle of nowhere. It's Gainesville, Georgia.
Okay.
And I just remember everything being far. I had a lot of fun. As a kid, that's all I knew. And it was just, my backyard was like a forest. I loved that. That was super fun. And then I came here, and it's kind of like in the city. It's completely different vibe. And so I was like, oh, it's so crazy. There's a metro and there's a bus that you can take. While over there, you needed a car to go anywhere. And here I just felt so free and just exploring and with my friends, just going around places. But Georgia for me was, my memory as a kid was my mom working a lot. I think when we arrived, like, I feel like this is how it happened. Like, we arrived, she was working like 2 jobs to be able to sustain. And my sister, who's 10 years older than me, was working after school. So she was in high school. I was 6, so I was in elementary school. She was 16, she was in high school. And so after school, I think she had found a part-time job at, maybe it was a Pizza Hut. And she hated it. She did not like Georgia. She got bullied. She what do you call this? Was received with a lot of racism
Really?
from what she told me. I didn't receive that. Like I had a great time. Like my experience with my sister was so different. Little kids aren't that prejudiced, I guess. It was just it was a great time for me. There's also a lot of Latinos in Georgia, but she didn't enjoy it at all. The first few years, she didn't like it. Now she's there and she loves it. Like for her, Georgia is home. But my memory at first, it was. I remember my sister working after school, my mom kind of having 2 jobs. So it was a lot of time alone, playing video games and drawing a lot. I got super chubby. I remember getting super chubby. I gained a bunch of weight. And then at a certain age, my mom said, all right, you got to play a sport. That's it. Out of the house.
What'd you choose?
I don't know why I chose that, but I chose baseball. I don't enjoy playing baseball. It was not for me. That was one horrible season, but I learned a few tricks of
what
how to
positions
swing.
did you play?
I don't even know. I had no idea what I was doing the whole time.
So funny.
But after that, I started playing soccer. I really enjoyed that. So I played soccer throughout middle school, and then I was only in Georgia until 10th grade. So I played 9th grade in high school, and then 10th grade I came here, and the school system here is different. And so here I had to go to French, to a French high school. So I didn't know French at all when I arrived. So I had to learn that. And that was like starting again from zero. And at first I didn't want to go to a French high school because there are some English schools, but there are like, it's a process to be able to go. I think one of your parents has to have gone or graduated from an English school for the kid to be able to go. But I'm super happy that I had to go to a French school because that just added another language for me, which I really appreciate now.
Did you start learning English at 6 when you moved to Georgia?
Yeah. So I think it's ESOL.
Wow.
You take like English classes.
I'm sure at that age, it probably just came kind of naturally. Like, do you remember the process of learning, or does it just seem like it just happened?
I think it just, for me, it just seemed like it just happened.
Wow.
Plus, I was playing video games, and I think that helped me out a lot, most probably. But I feel like as a kid, you just absorb it so much. Like, it just becomes kind of like a very natural to you.
I can imagine coming to Montreal, though, in grade 10, not speaking French must have been a huge transition.
Yeah, that was hard. French is hard. It's the R's, like all the accents is like it's just like, dude, it looks the same. It sounds the same for me, but I don't know. It was a hard time. You miss your friends at that. I was 15. That stage where you're like your friends are your kind of group or your world. So it was a bit hard, but at the same time, I just saw it as an adventure. What I found hard was here the system is elementary school and high school. And people graduate here usually at 16.
Really?
And I'm talking about Quebec. I don't know the rest of Canada. So, but then you go to something called CEGEP, which is kind of like a college, and then you go to university. And CEGEP is only like 2 years, so it's like a pre-university type of thing. And so you usually graduate CEGEP around 18 or 19, and then you go to university. I was 15 when I arrived, and a lot of the people in the French immersion program, there was 3 levels. So in the first level, were very young. They were like 12. I just remember everybody being so young, and I just felt like I don't want to be here. I don't enjoy this at all. I feel like with a bunch of little kids. So I was just studying all the time. I remember I got books, I got audio tapes, I was watching TV in French, I was just subbing everything. I was trying to absorb as much as I can just because I really wanted to get out of that class. And after, we arrived here in September. of 2007, and then the next year I started normal school or classes. So it took like a whole school year for me to get a basic level of French. I still had a big accent, but it helped. Like I could understand everything, and I could go to normal classes.
One thing I've wanted to know, being here in Montreal, because I speak a tiny bit of French. I studied French in high school and college. Is because I'm really intimidated by all the French speaking here. I feel like so out of place. I feel like such a foreigner. And what I want to know is it a good idea to try to start a conversation? Like if I'm just at a store or a restaurant, like, is it more polite to try to start it in French, even if I like can't finish it in French, or should I just not even try and just stick with English? Because like, I just don't know what to do. I feel like every single place I walk into, I feel like the tiniest person in the world. I'm like, hello, like, merci, bonjour. Like, how do I go about it? Because I know a small amount of French, but I would 100% just get lost in a conversation. I couldn't have a conversation.
So because, and I'm talking more, the younger population is very bilingual here. I would say speak with what you feel more comfortable, but if you want to practice your French, go for the French. And then if sometimes what I hear people say is like, oh, my French is so bad, people like the French person just starts speaking English to me because they kind of see that I'm struggling. But hey, practice, like that's the only way to be able to improve. But it's more if you want to improve your French, definitely go for it. But a lot of people here, it's sometimes just funny when you hear someone struggling in French and the other person is also kind of struggling in French, and then they're like, let's just speak English. Like, yeah, I've felt that. My French is my third language. I sometimes feel like I have to think before I can talk or speak. And so I am more comfortable in English. If I'm gonna go to the doctor and I know the doctor speaks English, I'm going to talk to the doctor in English. Like if for very specific things, I don't know a lot about cars. So whenever I have to go to the mechanic, which is already like, take my money, like I want to know why you're taking my money in detail in English, because then it's like technicalities, which like even in English, I'm not going to understand, but I'm still want to like fully grasp it.
Since you learned, I'm assuming that you learned French in English, if you know what I mean. Like when you translate for yourself, is there kind of a barrier between Spanish and French? Like if you're translating in your head, are you going between English and French versus like Spanish and French?
My go-to is English. Sometimes Spanish goes in there, but my go-to is that what is this? But I translate it to English. But it's just sometimes a word I might not know. Sometimes my brain is in Spanish mode. I don't know, like it's just in another language. So it just goes through that. But usually I'm more on the English side.
Would you say that a lot of your clients you're speaking English with, or is it like 50-50 French and English?
50-50.
Oh, wow.
I would definitely say that. Because there's a lot of also people from France here. So not just Quebec, like people from Quebec that speak French. There's also French people from France. And then there's people that are traveling that are English speaking. So it's been pretty equal amount.
Thinking about tattooing as a profession, obviously every job has its ups and its downs. What have been some of the more challenging, more difficult aspects of being a tattoo artist?
I would say setting your boundaries, but I think this relates to any type of job. But in terms of tattooing, and for me, it's more setting my boundaries in terms of the projects that I intake and how much the workload that I give myself, because we're self-employed, so we manage our time, and I feel extremely fortunate with the amount of volume that I've been receiving in terms of work. It's been very stable since I started. But as I remember, I worked a lot before, and it was great. I was practicing a lot at the beginning. It was just like, I want to be able to practice as much as I can. And then you start draining yourself. So it's just a learning experience in terms of the amount of workflow that you should actually intake, just because this is, sometimes you don't think about it, but you're in a uncomfortable position. Like,
Yeah.
yoga is key here for me. Like, after a little nice stretch, getting massages, going to the sauna is like amazing. But workflow, managing the amount of time that you spend on social media, and also not getting stressed or that pressure with your designs or drawings. Why am I tattooing? Why do I enjoy this? Like, what is it that I'm getting out of this? I want to have fun with it. Like, I want to create, I want to explore, I want to meet people. I want to get glimpses of all these realities. It has been so enriching for me. So how can I do that? By creating drawings and people getting them tattooed. So it's been, okay, I'm gonna focus on creating so I can tattoo it on people. There's a pressure on social media of, is it gonna be good enough? Just focus on, does it speak to you? Reflect on it, post it. And then what I do with my social media is, one, I have my notifications turned off, so I don't even know, I don't get anything. I only know when I go into it. Usually what I do is I go into it, I go to the message section, I respond, because I deal with my messaging through, I have Instagram as my little hub of how I deal with customers. And for now, I enjoy it. I know a lot of people just use emails to do their workflow, but I've found it right now a good workflow for me to use just social media, because it becomes my one stop type of thing, my one hub. So I go in there, answer messages, spend some time there, and I'm like, all right, that's the messages I answered for today. Tomorrow I'll answer whatever I can. I make my one story per day, and I make a post every 2 or 3 days. That consistency, that is something that took time to understand. So social media can be very energy draining, especially depending on how you use it and how much work you want to put into it. Creating reels is so much work. I didn't enjoy that at all.
Yeah.
I explored with it for a bit, and I was like, I'm spending way too much time on this. I don't want to spend like maybe an hour or two on just a 20-30 second type of thing. I was like, oh no, like I was like, the music has to be aligned with every little thing. I was like, no.
Yeah.
I don't want to, this is not for me. So I make a story a day. I make a post. I try to make a post every 2 or 3 days. And that's pretty much it. So having that balance of that workflow has been like something that is hard, and in every type of like industry is hard, but like for tattooing, it's kind of like those little things. How much you want to spend on drawing, how much you want to spend on actual tattooing, how much you want to spend on the marketing, which in my case has been social media.
How many tattoos are you typically doing a week?
I do 1 or 2 per day. And I work between 4 to 5 days a week.
Nice. And today's normally your day off. You normally take Wednesdays off, or
No. So usually I work Tuesdays to Saturday, and today is just that I got a surgery a couple months ago.
Oh.
And so I've been in recovery mode, and I blocked some days off to be able to. So that's why I could fit you in today.
Well, I really appreciate it, man. I'm really grateful that you were able to squeeze me in on such short notice.
No worries. I'm happy. I'm happy that you reached out. Like I'm always very grateful when my work speaks to people, and this was a different opportunity. Like it's not every day that somebody says, "Hey, can I do this with a podcast?" I'm like, "Oh, why not? Let's try it out."
And so about your style, because it's really unique, and I know that there are other artists who are doing dot work, but your style as a whole, I haven't seen a ton of stuff out there like it as a collection. So where do you draw inspiration from? Where are you pulling from? What artists? What books? Movies? Things that you've experienced? What inspires you?
I think one of the it was kind of like a chain, I guess. One where I landed in terms of tattooing. The studio where I did my apprenticeship and was there for 4 years. The style of work that they had. So David Cote was a big inspiration for me. So that started something that I really appreciated, his way of seeing life in terms of design, his background in graphic design, and just sometimes the surrealism of his designs. And then he presented to me a book of, I think it was Polish graphic design that spoke to me a lot. These high contrast designs with like sharp shapes, or it's just simple shapes to create things that you see every day, more abstract. That spoke to me a lot, and I don't know exactly the artists that are in there, but it was just like, oh, okay, this is the direction I kind of want to take this with, and then other artists that I find really inspiring. I would say, in terms of tattooing, I really appreciate. I think he's Polish, Patrick Chbosky, I think that's his last name. His work is, for me, amazing. Like I really enjoy what he does. There's another artist in Montreal. Her name is Laurence, or Noir sur Peau on Instagram. She likes to explore. I really enjoy the shapes that she does, and she also does dot work, and it's really funky sometimes, and I enjoy that. And then I just try to grab elements from whatever. I carry a little notebook with me, like a little drawing book with me everywhere I go, and I just try to exercise that little creative muscle in me as much as I can, just because I found it hard for a long time to be creative, and it's just the muscle. I still find it challenging, but the more you practice it, the more you kind of can be able to get into that groove of being in it and just go with it, and to have that child play and just draw, and whatever it is going to be, you make something, and now it's like, all right, let's mess it up. And sometimes when you mess it up, that's when you're like, oh, I actually really like this. And sometimes it doesn't work. And then sometimes you create something, you're like, oh, this is really cool. And then a few months later, you see it and you're like, the hell is that? Like, why did I do that? You got to see it as journal entries. Like, just this is what you did. That was today's journal entry, and that's it. Don't be so critical on yourself. That's the best. Do the best that you can do at that time.
Coming from a background in finance, What advice would you give to tattoo artists, especially independent tattoo artists, to really set themselves up for success and stability as a tattoo artist?
Good question. One is, it's sometimes hard to be organized with everything that you do, especially if you don't have a background in business or in finance, or just that concept of I gotta track everything. Keep hold of your expenses, keep hold of, like, I enjoy Excel sheets. So I have a little Excel sheet with all the tattoos that I've done and the information. That way I can keep track of my budget and my income and stuff. But it's just keeping track and finding a method for you to keep track of it. For me, Excel sheets are great because that's something I'm used to using. For others, it could be some other app that they might find more user-friendly. But it's mostly that. It can be chaotic, and then the year comes and you don't know what you made, how much you spent, which sometimes people like that, but it's hard to live with that or just save money. But then also finding a system for you to communicate with the people that you are potentially getting to work with. I have my templates of the communications that I sent out. I'm not going to write individual messages every time. That's like way too consuming. So I have my templates of kind of like what I already send out. And I have my scheduling tool or app for you, like the link I sent you for you to book an appointment. I find that super useful versus going back and forth with somebody saying, are you available this date? Oh no. And then you're like playing ping pong over here. And also setting your boundaries in terms of the projects that you kind of want to go with. But that's not even related to finance. but I was just tattooing in general. Like sometimes we just accept too many things, and your schedule is all over the place sometimes.
Do you think you'd ever want to open up a shop?
That's not really. My mindset is not really into opening a studio. I feel like when I think of that, so when people ask me that, is that business aspect is not why I went into tattooing. I went into tattooing to kind of have fun with it, to explore art and to learn how to be creative, or just to be creative and to create. And for someone that wants to run a business, that's a great project. But for me, I don't see myself doing that. And again, maybe in 5 or 10 years, I'm like, oh no, I really want to run one. But right now, it's just like, nah.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself as a tattoo artist in the long run?
Life is full of surprises, man. I don't know. How I see it is just, I'm gonna continue doing or exploring tattooing for as long as it speaks to me. I enjoy drawing, and right now this is a medium of drawing that I really enjoy because of what it brings. I get to be creative. I get to meet people. In terms of projects, perhaps I would want to understand more the body. Right now I'm doing individual pieces, so more of bigger work, I guess, that would be it. But like really putting together something, the body as a whole canvas. So maybe a full suit somehow. But right now, this has been great practice. I feel like my line work was great practice to then start something of what I'm doing now. And what I'm doing now is great practice for what is to come. What's speaking to me is moving to understanding more the body. So I think in terms of tattooing, that would be it. And in terms of projects, whatever starts coming in.
Yeah. Who are some tattoo artists that you would love to meet?
The one I mentioned, Patrick Chibowski, who's I believe he's in Poland. But other than that, I don't go on social media that much, and so in terms of names, I wouldn't be able to like pin out like, oh, these. When I see the work, I'm like, oh, that's amazing. But again, I'm like super shy, so like it's cool for me to when people come and like I'm talking to them, but sometimes meeting people like to say, oh, I want to meet this person. I don't know what to say to them. I'm like, hey man, what's up? Really like your work.
Yeah, that's fair. That's kind of one of those like meeting your heroes things can be a little
Yeah.
like what does that actually even look like? You know?
Exactly.
Might not have anything in common besides just tattooing.
And
what
then,
about
yeah, the person can be like not the person you expected.
Totally. What about dream destinations? Are there any places that you would just absolutely love to tattoo in? Any cities, any countries?
Well, I would like to explore the west of Canada. I haven't been, so definitely would like to just check out, travel a bit over there, and like tattoo a few days here and there. I'm going to New York in the summer, and then perhaps because I have family in Florida, I'm thinking of doing a little guest spot in Miami at the end of the year, and definitely Europe. I would like to just travel a bit here and there, especially because there has been a lot of people reaching out from France and other little countries here and there, London as well, just to be able to, this is an amazing perk that we get to have in terms of tattooing, that you get to work from different places. It's a lot of work, like you have to, it's a lot of planning versus just a regular travel, but I really enjoy being able to do that.
Yeah. What do you like to do outside of tattooing? What are some of your hobbies, not work related?
Not work related. Recently, I started learning how to play chess. So I've been really getting into that little puzzle aspect of it. I really like.
Do you have a chess.com account?
I do, yes. It's
nice.
I play a little one game per day.
Nice.
Just to get into learn a bit more of the technique and just having fun with it. And then I started doing a yoga teacher training this year, which I really appreciated. I started doing yoga about 2 years ago. I didn't know anything about yoga. Like you see people in the Lululemon and mats and doing the stretches. So for me, that's what yoga was. I've been learning throughout this teacher training, and I'm doing the teacher training not to become a teacher. It's just I wanted to be more. I wanted to learn a bit more of what yoga was and the origins of it and the community, and it's the philosophy behind it really speaks to me. The way of living, the meditation aspect of it, the going inside the mind. To actually meet the self, and that you're not your body, you're not your mind, but it's that consciousness. So it's more of that I've been really that has spoken to me. The asanas, which are the actual movements, they're fun and they're nice, and they can be actually really relieving after like long hours being held up in weird positions. So that's really good, and like getting to know your body and just having a more calmer mind and learning how to breathe, because sometimes we're just like breathing like crazy animals in a panic. You just like slow it down and understand more. And apart that, I feel I like to run here and there. Again, I haven't ran that much because of the surgery that I had, but slowly starting to. And I don't run like big distances. It's just like short distances, but constantly. And throughout the pandemic, before, I would always track my runs. And then with the lockdown, I was like, I'll try something different. I didn't take my phone, didn't take my headphones, like nothing to track. And then I just take different routes every time, and I really enjoy that. It just becomes more like an exploration, and like you feel more your breath, the footsteps, the people talking, the wind, like everything around. And running, like I run all year round, so during the winter, that crunch of the snow, I really enjoy that as well.
That is that's intense, man. Running all year round in Montreal.
Yeah.
In the minus 20, minus 30.
If you gear up, it's
Yeah.
good. Like honestly, after multiple years living here, you start understanding. You just gotta gear up.
Yeah.
Like I remember being in like a student and being on a budget, and just like, I'm not gonna pay $300 for a jacket. Like $300 is not that much for a jacket. Like now that I've seen it, and for good quality, like
Right.
my winters are so different now. It's just like, it's winter. All right, cool. Like let me just put my good gear on, my winter gear, and that's it.
I had a similar experience in Vancouver, stubbornly resisting a good pair of boots and just wearing skate shoes
Yeah,
and just
there
getting
you go.
soaked,
Yeah.
drenched, soaked feet all the time. And then finally investing in a good pair of boots, which was probably not even that expensive. It was probably like $100 or something.
Yeah.
Just a
and it's
world
worth it. It's so
of
worth
difference.
it. Yeah, your whole winter experience is like a whole different reality. You're like, oh, all right, this is great. Like I can walk. I'm not cold. I'm not wet. This is great.
Well, it's kind of funny. I find that sometimes those investments in, spending that extra bit of money to get something that's quality can make such a difference. And the studio space that we're in right now kind of reminds me of that. I mean, I had no idea what to expect, showing up today. I thought we were just going to tattoo in your home. And then coming into the studio, it's a beautiful space, but the fact that it's dedicated and you're making that choice to spend that extra money to have a dedicated place to tattoo, and you've really put investment and time and energy into making this place nice. I'm sure that in the long run, that's actually really benefited you, having this space for people to come to. Makes a big difference.
Yes, I agree. The experience that the person getting the tattoo has is important for me. I want to provide a good experience. I'm hosting in a way when somebody comes, and I just want the person to feel comfortable, to feel at ease, and just to be. Already you're gonna be like in pain because I'm poking you. So my friend, when she saw the apartment and the view, she was like, you're just trying to ease them in before you just start stabbing them endlessly with a needle. And I'm like, yes, it's exactly that. It's like, just be at ease. Like, it's super simple. It's super, like, it's tiny, but it's the space that it spoke to me, and that I kind of envisioned for me to be in a creative state and with other people, and for me is extremely worth it. I feel at home, and that is very important for me. So definitely, like, it's worth the investment.
When you get tattooed, do you get tattooed in here, or are there some shops that you really like to go to? What is your personal tattoo experience like?
It's by the artist, and I would go to where the artist is working at. And so I don't have that many tattoos. I'm one of the rare breeds of people that tattoo that barely has tattoos. So I'm more of an incognito tattoo artist or whatever. But when I've gotten tattooed, it's been that I've gone to the wherever the artist is working at.
What was that experience like getting your first tattoo? Because at that point in time, you had already tattooed somebody. So it's kind of funny to think for that first time you're getting tattooed, you're realizing, oh, this is what it felt like.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Definitely painful. It's like, all right, nice. That's what it feels like to get endlessly poked in the body. So that was cool. And it was fun. I really enjoyed it. It was at Velour, and it was by somebody that was also learning how to tattoo. And so David was guiding her to tattoo me. And I appreciate it. Like, I had just gone, it was her first tattoo, and I had just gone through that experience of doing my first tattoo. So for sure I had in mind, it's not going to be perfect, but I felt so fortunate to have somebody come and provide me with that opportunity. I felt happy to provide her with that opportunity, and it was just a nice moment. So,
What advice would you give to somebody who is looking for an apprenticeship, wants to get into tattooing, wants to have an apprenticeship?
I would say start with creating a flashbook, whether you've tattooed or not before. Creating a flashbook of simple designs, because when you're starting to tattoo, you're gonna start with the basics pretty much, of designs that you would like to tattoo, right? That speak to you but that are very tattooable for that stage where you're at. And to go around and showcase that flashbook and approach studios, and just to really find an apprenticeship. I find it very important. You can go the route of not doing an apprenticeship. It's just, there's so many things that you will learn. Like, there might be so many mistakes that you will do throughout time that you could have avoided if you would have just learned from somebody. And every apprenticeship is going to be different. Try to, I was very fortunate, and mine was a beautiful experience. But it can be a luck to find a studio or an artist that is actually willing to teach you. And so maybe another thing is to not just go for somebody that will teach you, even though you have a bad feeling with that person, that it's not going to be that great. Like, listen to your body, listen to your that gut feeling. If you feel like this person is sketchy, or I got a bad feeling about this, don't do it. Like, wait, it'll come. Because I've heard, or like, you hear people saying that they've had bad stories or bad experiences with their apprenticeship. But apprenticeship, definitely important.
What were some of those pro tips that you learned over the course of that apprenticeship? Some of the just sage wisdom that you learned from the people more experienced than you?
Preparing the stencil, just keeping it simple. In terms of the line when you're doing the stencil, and then to apply, like the actual drawing, to create the stencil. Just as simple as possible, because then it gets messy when you're actually tattooing. That was amazing, just because it makes the whole workflow great. And for me, one of the things that helped me out, which is so simple, but helped me out so much, was the paper towel situation of when you're cleaning. At first, I was getting it wet and then wiping every time. And then it gets so messy because then the skin is wet, and so when you put the ink, it just becomes a blob, and then the stencil starts erasing, and you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna freehand this thing. And David just said, keep it dry, tap it. I was like, oh, thank you, man. Like, wow. Just like, mic dropped, he left the room. I was like, oh my God, dude, that was like,
Wow.
my tattooing experience changed dramatically after that. It was just like, wow. So, I mean, you gotta have it wet for some things, but most of the time, like, I've been just dry tapping it to clean the ink off.
How do you pick a tattoo machine? Is it kind of like in Harry Potter when they're picking a wand?
It picks you.
What is that experience like?
So the first machine that I picked, I don't even remember how I picked it. I think I was just going, I didn't understand anything. So I don't remember. The second machine that I got was because it was the machine that David was using, the person that was teaching me. And he really enjoyed it, and he had been tattooing with it for many years. So, and he let me try his, and I really enjoyed it. So I then got one of those. He also, and there's two routes, right? There's rotary and then there's coil. He tattoos with both, and he really recommended me to go as well to learn how to use a coil. So I did both. Coil did not speak to me. It did not choose me. No, it vibrates so much, and for the type of work that I'm doing, it's not necessary. Depending on the type of work that you do, it can be a great asset. But for what I do, it's not necessary. And a rotary machine is just so much lighter on the body. So then this one, I wanted something wireless. So I feel like it's been more than a year, maybe a year and a half that I've had this one. And so this is a Good Guy Supply machine, one of the companies it's the company that I get my needles that I appreciate the needles that they have. So I saw that they had a wireless machine. I was like, yeah, let's try it out. I enjoy their work, their quality of the needles, and I've really enjoyed it. So
it's super quiet too.
Yeah, rotaries tend to be quiet. Yeah, they don't make that much sound. The coil is that little bar that's hitting that makes that nice
loud,
crazy sound.
I still have yet to do a podcast with a coil machine. I think that'll be hard. I think that's going to be
editing
tricky.
it. I guess I'm guessing you
the
have
magic plugins. Yeah, that'll be the real test.
We're getting there. It's almost coming to that.
Man, such a wow. That looks incredible.
Thank you.
That looks insane.
I appreciate it.
God. So how many tattoos do you have now?
On me, I have 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a lot.
I don't know how that. No.
What was the placement of the first one?
Ankle.
Oh yeah, I feel like that's the spicy spot.
Yeah. Bony.
That ankle bone, man. Oof.
I was just like, oh, okay, nice. This is gonna be a nice ride.
Have you ever used that numbing spray, Bactine? You ever used that before?
Yeah. For people, yes. Have you gotten Bactine?
I have recently.
Do you actually find that it numbs you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny. I did a podcast a few podcasts ago with this girl named Alina, and she did this moth on me.
Yeah.
And she made me use it because she wanted me to know what it felt like. And I was like, okay, this feels scientific. I should know. Let's
Part of an experiment. I like that.
Let's do it. And so as she started tattooing me, I think the expression on my face just says it all because I was like, oh, wow, I feel nothing.
Oh,
I
wow,
really
that's
feel
good.
nothing. So I was pretty surprised.
I
How well it
barely
worked.
use it. Honestly, what I use it more for is when the stencil is really there. Bactine is great to remove the
Oh,
stencil.
really?
It's just because at the end, sometimes the stencil is still there
Yeah.
and on spots that I like. It's for the pick at the end to showcase the work, and you're seeing the stencil still. I don't enjoy that. So it's great to remove, but I haven't felt that I've needed it that much to be in terms of like the pain tolerant or the pain experience of the person. Especially if you said she put it at the beginning.
She did it halfway through.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Because at the beginning, the stencil would have just come
Yeah.
off. So she would have had a really hard time after.
Yeah, and it was halfway through. What does taking a break look like when it comes to tattooing? Taking a vacation, taking time off, and then coming back to it. Is there a certain sense of like how fast do you lose the feel of tattooing? Like if you were to take a break for a month and come back to tattooing, do you think you could jump right back into it, or would it kind of take a second to get that again?
I usually do that every year.
Take a month off.
Month or 2 months.
2 months. Okay.
This year, I took a little bit more. But usually like a month and a half to 2 months, especially during the winter, just because sometimes I go and visit family or just hibernation and just take some time for myself. You need that. You need those times to be able to let the body regenerate from all the tensions and like work that you've been doing throughout the whole year. Getting back to it, it makes me appreciate what I'm doing even more. From the times that I've left and then came back, it's like, I really enjoy what I'm doing. Like, this is great. I love this.
You don't find that there is a technical element that takes you a second to remember? Like, do you feel like any of your skills depreciate at all when you take time off?
I feel slower, for sure. I feel slower, and I feel more attentive to what I'm doing. But I haven't felt that I've lost it. So thank you. Thank you, universe.
Yeah.
Thank you, body. No, I haven't felt that I've lost it. I just feel a bit slower than after a full year of tattooing 1, 2, or 3 tattoos per day.
Have you ever had a client who wasn't satisfied with their tattoo?
Most probably a lot at the beginning, for sure.
Really? Yeah.
Well, when you're first starting, it's
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
definitely people probably were not like, but that's what they expected. Hey, I was
Yeah.
telling people, hey, you're my tattoo number 4, tattoo number 11. Like they knew what they were
Yeah.
coming. Everything was free. Like I was doing things for free.
Yeah.
And then I started charging like $20, $50, and then slowly started charging a bit more. But for sure. And now I haven't had an experience where people have been like, no, I haven't had that. And I'm very grateful that I haven't had that. I try to do my whatever I'm doing with love and kindness and as if it is on a family member. So I'm just picturing like somebody that I know and I'm tattooing them right now. To be that attentive, because I find it special. One, I find it super special that you provided me with trust to manipulate your body, right? You don't go in the middle of the street and ask somebody, yo, can you poke me? Like it takes trust. You saw the type of work that I saw and it spoke to you, but then you took that risk of let's go for it. let's try this out. And so I'm very aware of that, and I'm very appreciative. So I always try to be as attentive as possible. And this was a flash, so you already knew what the design looked like. When it's custom work, I showcase the design the day of. So that's an extra layer of trust that people are providing you with. And it could be a stressful moment for the clients as well, just because they don't know what the actual design looks like. But I tell them, I provide the design the day of, and I provide 1 or 2 versions of it, and modifications are welcome. Like if they want to change something, we could definitely change something. And it's been like that. Like sometimes they're like, oh my God, yes, this is great. Boom, we go ahead. Other times like, oh, can you make little changes here and there? Or sometimes we merge kind of like the 2 designs that I made for them. And then other times it's kind of like a whole different route. And like I take my time with that. Like I want the person to feel comfortable with what they're gonna get. And if you don't feel comfortable with what I'm showcasing you, feel no pressure in getting it. Like don't get it if you're not gonna be like happy with it. If you're gonna look at it and be like, no, don't, not at all.
Tattooing is kind of interesting to me because of the permanence of it. You know, there's, as slow as you want to go, there's still kind of just this one shot. It's this moment, this thing that's happening, and in a way there's no going back. And I think I can only imagine that there might be a certain level of performance anxiety or nerves. And I'm sure that when you first were tattooing, you probably felt it more than now. I'm sure that changes over time.
Yeah, definitely.
What helped alleviate those nerves or any kind of anxiety?
One, practice. I have been super fortunate, and I've had a good volume of practice. Like people just providing me with skin to practice on throughout the years since I started. And so that just helps, because you start getting accustomed to the skin, the needle, the machine, how things work, the different parts of the body. The more you explore, the more you start seeing. So it's kind of funny that I say I don't tattoo hands and I'm saying the more you explore, you start also seeing what you don't want to do. And then you start like, okay, I enjoy these things, and I'm gonna set some boundaries as well. But it's important to explore it. Like I did one face tattoo once, and I'm like, whoa,
Really?
that's way so much pressure. It was super tiny, but it was just like, oh my God, like the amount of pressure you have on like just someone's face, like nah.
What was the placement on the face?
A cheek, and it was when I first started. I had recently started, so it was line work. It was like a twinkle, like a star type of thing. So super simple.
Wow.
But super simple means that if you mess up, like that's a mess up. Like you're gonna see it on their face. So it's a lot of practice, but also understanding through time that no tattoo is perfect. Like you're always gonna look at it and like right there, right there, you know. But you just try your best, do the best that you can do. Take your time with it. Don't rush it. That's why I do 1 or 2 tattoos per day. Just I enjoy taking my time on it, like doing it with like ease instead of like I want to pack as much as I can so that I can do as many tattoos as I like throughout the day. Nah, man. Like it's your art. Like, do your art with like that love and kindness that it deserves.
In terms of choosing a tattoo, and also the age at which somebody starts getting tattooed, do you have any thoughts or advice about, you know, maybe waiting until a certain age? I know there's no, you know, like one size fits all for everyone, but Are there some general principles that you would advise when somebody is considering getting a tattoo?
I tattoo like 18 and above and older, and that was kind of that was the rule at Velour, and I appreciate that rule, just because when we're young, we will like a lot of things and we do some interesting decisions that then we're like, why did I do that? Taking your time on it, man. There's no need to rush to get a tattoo. It is like that moment. But for me, if somebody reaches out and even if they have their parents' consent, I'll wait for them to be 18 years old before I tattoo them.
What about in terms of having an idea in your mind? Do you think that there's any guiding principles? You know, I've heard a million different things, like draw it on yourself for 6 months, and if you still want it, or like if you still want it 2 years later, or this and that. There's a million different ways to think about it. Is there anything that you think is actually decent advice?
That's a tricky one, because I think it's a case by case, and it's always harder when you don't have that many tattoos. I guess when you're first starting to get tattoos, you feel more, like it's gonna showcase more that tattoo, right, that you have, and so you might be more picky as to what it's gonna be, and sometimes the person really needs some value, that it means something. If you think the design's cool and it speaks to you, get it. If it looks great in the placement, go for it. If you want to have something that is meaningful for you, find a concept. Find an artist that speaks to you, that their art speaks to you, and reach out. If they find it, if they accept the project, go for it. And just go with that flow. Like sometimes we want to control everything, but find that concept, find the artist that their art speaks to you. If it works out, like provide it, show up to the appointment. If what they've done speaks to you still, just get it. If it doesn't, it's okay. Don't get it. Like, hey, sorry, man. I'm going to maybe ruin your day, but it's just not for me. That's it. Like, you're going to feel so much better throughout the rest of your life than carrying something that you don't like.
Yeah. I think that that's an important piece of wisdom. I think as much research as you can going into it, really find somebody you vibe with, but also trust your gut.
Yeah.
So, and, because you're gonna have that thing on you for the rest of your life. So
pretty much.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, that's the thing I didn't really want, but I was too shy to say something, which I've heard. I've heard people tell me that. I was like, I was 17. I didn't understand. I didn't know. The person showed it. It didn't really speak to me, but I was too shy. I didn't say anything, and I got it, and. Yeah, it's there. It's still there. She's like, all right. And that's cool. Like, hey, it's a learning experience. That's how you start understanding to speak, to listen to yourself, to listen to that gut, to listen to your body, and to not just act on that pressure. Mm-hmm. We're almost there. Almost done, sir.
Dude, it is looking really, 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 really sick.
Thank you.
I'm very impressed, man. I do really love your style, and this has been such a funny experience laying here. it's kind of making me think it'd be funny to do a podcast where maybe like not necessarily a tattoo podcast, but just me and the guest, we're both laying side by side in beds. Just it kind of changes the whole dynamic of it, the whole experience. Man, had you ever done a podcast before at all? And
When I had first started tattooing, there was a YouTuber that reached out that wanted to do like a little episode for his channel. Not of me tattooing him, but it was just the life of somebody that tattoos.
oh, that's cool.
So we did that, and it was really fun. It was in Spanish.
Nice.
And like that was pretty. That was a nervous experience. It was like the first time. Camera lights, like he had like right there on you, just like oof. Then the other one, I had a second experience with the person that I said that I tattooed her grandparents. So I've tattooed her multiple times, and then once she asked me if she used to do a podcast, so she asked me if I would be down to do an episode with her.
Nice.
And we got to know each other even more there. So,
dude, you're gonna have to send me this podcast and that video. It's that's pretty sweet.
I'll share it with you. Yes,
that's awesome. Yeah, the world of tattooing is just it's so fascinating to me. The history of it, the origins, and also the diversity of it. There's just, and especially now, I feel like we're in this era where it's become more accessible, maybe even to a bad point. You know, anybody can go on Amazon and buy a machine.
Yeah.
And just start going for better or for worse.
Yeah.
It's funny too, the outcomes that leads to. I interviewed a tattoo artist who, her ex-husband had bought a tattoo machine and was tattooing himself, and just totally messed it up, and came to her, and she was like an architect and, you know, designer, not a tattoo artist, not, you know, even necessarily a visual artist. And he was like, you got to help me fix this tattoo. And that was how she became a tattoo artist.
Wow,
was from
that's
that
amazing.
experience. She started working on his tattoo, and I guess maybe she posted it on Instagram, and then people just started hitting her up. Hey, can you tattoo me?
That's amazing.
And then one thing led to another, and now she's a full-time tattoo artist.
That's crazy. I love that. These little things that you don't expect in life, and then it just changes your whole life around. And she's probably so much happier doing what she's doing.
I think so, yeah. Do you have a lot of friends who are tattoo artists? I know that you mentioned that you're more of an introvert, but within the Montreal scene, are you connected with a lot of tattoo artists?
I wouldn't say so. Like I would say acquaintances, and we've met here and there, but like that I hang out with, apart the people from Velour that I used to spend a lot of time with. Like it's not that I'm chilling with people that within Montreal that tattoo. So no, not really.
Do you get the sense that in Montreal, among a lot of the tattoo shops and artists that are tattooing out of shops, that there is kind of a camaraderie of tattoo artists, you know, socializing together, or is everybody kind of just doing their own thing, from what you can surmise?
From my perspective, I feel like, well, it's really hard just because I didn't know anything about tattooing before. From these past 4.5 years that I've been in the industry, it's been, from my side, I respect a lot what other people do in terms of their work, especially when they have unique work. Like I appreciate that, and when they do funky things and weird spots, I'm like, wow, that person was able to do that. That's hard, and they did such a clean job. Like, props. I don't know how often other artists connect with each other, because I don't tend to follow a lot on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, again, I just go in there, post, and answer messages. Sometimes I'll scroll and because it's also a place like what I follow on Instagram is tattoo artists, but also photographers, graphic designer, or just design illustrators, 3D art. And so it's a place for me. It's like where I kind of sometimes get inspiration from. But the day-to-day lives of people, I don't know. But I've seen like from the studios that I've been to guest as well, there was a nice bond between the people. So that was nice to see. And everybody has been super friendly. Like the artists that I've met have been super welcoming with me. Like I tattooed at after Velour, the other studios that I tattooed, they were just like super welcoming. So I really appreciated that.
Have you ever tattooed at a convention?
I have not. I don't think that's my thing. I've done a couple of flash days, and the concept of flash day is that you have a bunch of designs, and then people show up, and you try to pack in as many as possible. And I started seeing that that's not really what I enjoy. Again, I like to take my time with my tattoo and put as much energy and care into it rather than do it as fast as possible to pack in as many. And a convention feels a bit like that because one, you're paying like a big fee to be part of the convention, depending on the convention. And then you kind of want to pay off your booth or whatever it is. And you like it gives me that vibe. I'll try eventually just to be able to experience that. Yeah, for sure. I feel like that would be a nice like experience to have. But no, I haven't been yet.
They're pretty weird. I've only been to one before. I went to one in LA, and it was very weird.
What was weird about it? What did you?
I felt like it wasn't produced at a high level. It felt kind of low budget a little bit.
Okay, and in LA.
Yeah, I know. I was surprised. They had some performers that was kind of a funny thing. Like they had a stage and they had performances. Okay. And they were really weird. It was like,
what type of performance?
There was this guy, this old guy, and he had like a kind of like a strap-on metal pipe dildo situation. And then these girls with angle grinders were like grinding the pipes and like making all these sparks all to like heavy metal music and like dancing.
Okay.
It was probably one of the most bizarre performances I've ever seen. And it almost felt like, what can we find that's in the vein of tattooing and edgy and avant-garde, and I don't know that it totally fit it just felt a little over the top.
And I don't believe I don't think every convention is like that.
No, I don't think so. I think that was just my one experience.
You went to that one. That was
the one that was just bizarre.
I did meet some wrong, really. They're just adding that to the roster.
Yes. Yeah, they're on tour right now. They're going to every single convention. That act, they're a hit. I did meet some really cool artists. I felt like a lot of the artists that were there were more so from conventional kind of like old school kind of shops.
Okay.
Yeah. Like just old school LA kind of.
It was the promotion is the way to promote themselves. Because I feel like that's a great way to promote, especially before Instagram was around, or social media. Doing conventions was a great way to just get yourself seen, like same thing as magazines and things like that. And it's still a great way to meet people or other artists from around the world. Like they have a yearly convention here in Montreal. I went once to walk. I didn't tattoo there.
What was your experience like?
It was nice. Like I walked around. It's a bunch of booths, and you get to see people working and their table, and just get to explore I forgot how many artists there were, but it was a big amounts of people that were there. I did the tour. I remember I got a book at the store that was there, and that was it. But I stayed probably like for an hour. Maybe I missed the show that you saw.
You missed out, man.
I missed
It was
out.
something else, let me tell you. Oh, man. How many tattoos have you done at this point? Do you know the number?
Yes, because I have my little Excel sheet.
Yeah.
But I don't know exactly the number, but I think it's 2,220 something around there.
Man.
Yeah.
Is there, I know it's kind of arbitrary, but is there a number in your head that you're like, that would be really cool to hit? It's like a lifetime goal of like,
No.
10,000 tattoos. No.
I have the numbers because
You keep track.
I keep
Yeah.
track. And at first it was very motivating. Like, I got 10 tattoos. Whoa. Because
Sure.
at first it was like on synthetic skin. I was like, okay, I'm going to do, like it was a way to motivate me to do, okay, I'm going to do a tattoo, a goal of 10 tattoos on synthetic skin. So just to practice my lines.
Do you still have those pieces that you did?
I do, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, they're right there. Nice little memory. And then it just became, I did 20 tattoos, 50 tattoos on actual humans. Like, wow, this is great. Thank you guys so much. And then 100 tattoos. Wow. But now it's more, it's really not what I focus on. It's there just because I just keep track. And that's kind of like my little nerdy finance side of me that's still there. And I find it very useful. But it's just a number. From my experience with finance, I saw we as humans can have an addiction with numbers. And it's, you want the lowest number for some things and the highest number for other things, especially in a bank account or in a race. You want the lowest thing or the time, whatever. And just to let go of that, just feel so much better. Kind of like when I used to run, by tracking myself, and then I stopped tracking. I started enjoy running so much more. Just like, letting go of that. Like, hey. But yeah, so no number in mind to say that, all right, I've reached level whatever of tattooing.
It's so true, though, that as humans, we have that proclivity to be obsessed with the numbers. And I think that translates into social media directly.
Yeah.
How many likes, how many followers, how many views.
It gives you, it gives people sometimes a sense of power or of popularity or of control or something, that it feeds that little ego within us. But it's a balance of, in amounts that being moderate with how much you pay attention to the numbers, because it can be super useful for me budget-wise in terms of like what I'm actually going to spend per month. Just everyday living. We do live in a society that you actually need money to be able to live or do things in life. So just being mindful of it, but not focusing your whole time on it.
You know, I get the sense throughout this conversation that balance is something that's really important in your life when it comes to yoga and meditation and social media and scheduling and all that. Was there ever a point in time in your life where it was the opposite and things were wildly unbalanced, and that you, like, the journey that you've been on is because of that, or have you just always had that mindset, that attitude?
I've been fortunate that it was not chaotic. I have just always been, my girlfriend told me shortly after we first started dating, or a couple months after we first started dating, that I am a bit like a cat. I kind of move a bit and see my perimeter. So I'm allergic to cats. I didn't know. I haven't dealt with cats in my life,
Yeah.
just because of that. And she had a cat. She has a cat, and she started telling me that I'm kind of like a cat in terms of, like, when you let a cat out, it's not gonna be like a dog that runs out and like goes crazy. She said that it goes out, walks, and when it starts getting more comfortable, it starts walking a little bit farther and stuff like that, and then it just starts roaming around. I feel, and that spoke to me. I was like, yeah, I am a little bit like that. So it hasn't been chaotic, but I've been learning to be more balanced, and I've been learning to listen to my body, because I'm also human, and we make those mistakes, and it's throughout those mistakes that we start seeing how important it is to have that balance, to have moderation, to not exaggerate, and also just seeing through other people's, like, experiences, that when they do things so much, that they start hurting, but they just can't even control themselves. One, sometimes because they don't even notice, they don't realize, and we get so sucked into our little bubbles that we don't know that we're like hurting ourselves. So it's, with everything, I try to practice moderation, with my exercise, with my yoga, with my tattooing, with my art, with my free time, just like little bits here and there. It's just like, this is great. I get to do a little bit of everything, and my body doesn't like drain and exhaust, because of what I'm doing.
Well, you're probably gonna have a lot of longevity because of that practice. I think there's a lot of wisdom there. And it's funny because it's kind of countercultural. I think we live in a society that can be maybe it's different in Montreal. I don't really fully know what the vibe is here, but coming from LA, I mean, life can be very, very, very fast paced and just go, 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 do a million things, no breaks.
I can see that here, and it really depends on what you do.
Yeah.
And it really depends on who you're speaking with. You can definitely have that. A lot of people definitely have that lifestyle here of go, go, go. And that's because of the society we kind of live in, that markets happiness in the things that you need to buy. And to be able to buy those things, you need to have a certain amount of money. And to be able to have a certain amount of money, you got to work. And sometimes you're not even enjoying what you're doing for work, but you're just trying to get more money so that you can buy that happiness. And then when you get that happiness, it lasts for like 30 seconds. And you're like, yay, I got a new car. And then the car after a year, like, all right, it's just the car. It's just the car. Like, we're just like, it's being focused on the wrong things to make you buy more and to make you like just I I guess not really understand what is important, which is, I mean, at least for me, doing what we actually enjoy, being with the people we actually enjoy being with, spending time with people that care for you and that you care with. And if I like to draw, I'm going to draw. And I'm very fortunate that I get to draw and make some money out of it so that I can live, which is great, and meet people. And that's it. I'm exploring. We get to explore so much within this reality, within life. This planet is just filled of amazing places that we can go, amazing people that we can meet, food that we can taste, like so much colors, so much texture. And so not focusing on having these material things, which can be useful for certain things, but more focusing on how we treat each other and just that love and kindness that you treat yourself with, and you treat your partner with, and you treat like your friends and family with. For me, that's what it kind of a bit of the meaning of life, like to be able to have a healthy life balance within this experience that we get to live in. And we finished the tattoo.
Well, I think that was a beautiful note to end on, man. Carlos, this has been really awesome. I'm so happy that we did this.
Me too. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you,
really
man.
appreciate it.
I'm excited to. Wow.
Look at that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is incroyable.
Incroyable. Check it out. You're going to Colombia, so what's in Spanish?
Perfecto, man.
Perfecto.
Perfecto.
Gracias.
Well, dude, gracias. Thank you so much. This is awesome. This has been a real honor. And, I'm excited to get back to Montreal, and we got to do some more tattoos, man. So
I appreciate the trust. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for listening to the Spring Street Podcast. If you'd like to support the show, sign up for the Patreon to receive exclusive behind-the-scenes content, and check out the sponsor links in the description.